Zach from Gravel by California, back here in Raymond, where I'm ready to do Everyone Loves Raymond. Now, last year I came out here and unfortunately I had a cold, but I still went out and about, and that was an amazing experience. I mean, to be on the other end and see the joy on people's faces. Now, how many people get the chance to go out there and actually live the dream? I'm excited to do it, and let's wrap this up. Let's roll.
With views like these, it's hard to miss out on a day of riding. But if you do enough events, you know your wellness will get misaligned at some point, making me more prepared for today's riding to take it all in, as there's plenty of moments to write 1,000 words for Everyone Loves Raymond. The 60-mile Growler loop has an off-road majority, and it's where a lot of the climbing will take place too, allowing you to take in the views even more. Driving in, you already know how green it's going to be. Getting there early enough to see the keggers off, who would be riding the combined Growler and Pint loops. Heading back to the starting area at Footman Park with the typical nervous energy, getting ready, being more at ease as the Fresno Cycling Club was well prepared, and we all feel better once we're on our bikes. Can't deny the good vibes waiting to head out, as Henry shared some friendly words to send us off, rolling out with an orderly start, allowing me to reconnect with Vic, who I hadn't spoken to in minutes, as Tone's clothing again set the tone for this ride, passing part of the train people used to help get to Yosemite years ago, as we were now riding through the heart of Raymond, enjoying it while we still can, because our time on Raymond Road was short-lived, as it was time to head for the hills, staying to the left from the split from the Pine Course, with 8 miles of pavement until we hit dirt. While we needed our climbing legs for some of the time, in this direction we were going mostly down, and it didn't matter what we were doing attitude-wise. We were all out there to have fun, and how could you not in these surroundings? Though at mile 5 it would happen at a higher rate, enjoying the breeze on this 1-mile descent that culminates crossing the Chowchilla River that's more prominently featured on the Pint route. Another difference with the Growler route is we entered Mariposa County, which would be our second jurisdiction that seemed to be more heavily populated if we were just going by cows, getting the hint that we'd soon be hitting dirt, with Jim waiting to direct us off of Ben-Hur Road, starting off 8 miles of rolling terrain to the first aid station, getting to be time to start shedding those layers, gaining enough elevation since passing the Chowchilla River that feeds into Eastman Lake, created 50 years ago, and while it also serves as a recreation area, we had plenty of entertainment of our own, enjoying the sprouting accents of spring and endless supply of this pristine landscape, concluding our time on Preston Road 2 miles in that veers off to the left around this beautifully framed mining relic. A warning if you're scouting this route on Google Maps, as the aerial shows this landscape as brown, which might have been the color least seen out here, save for the surface we were riding on. Interesting on how crossing our first cattle guard, it smelt heavily like cows, although none were around, not expecting so many road signs to parade our way through. The trees were starting to get scarce, but the cattle grades weren't, finally honing in on our first bovines in this region, and while it was up and down for us, the surface was in great condition no matter the speed, and if you look closely, you could find some detail, like the world's shortest rock wall lining the ridge, getting us ready for a mile-ish length climb, with none of the pitches on dirt at an extraordinary clip. Now the trees returning, signaling our next phase, approaching today's first rest stop. Only 16 miles in, Vic and I opted to keep riding, beginning 8 miles of mostly climbing, including crossing Ben-Hur Road, rarely with hints exactly where you were headed, though plenty of context around to understand where you are, as we were early enough not to catch the cross traffic back from the kegers, though able to cross paths with these locals who may not have gotten as good of a view of the creek as us. The landscape returned to its rolling mantra without spotting cattle for our longest stretch, with brief dips along the way, though more characterized by steady climbing, where turning over the gears flowed naturally, with this big sweeping curve approaching mile 20, offering the most intriguing views so far that hopefully everyone didn't have their heads down, with this marked rock acting like a gateway, not to paparazzi, but for a turnoff, beginning the candy to our lollipop loop onto Beach Road. These 3 miles to Ben Hur Road was my most anticipated, because last year this section was a big tease to me, seeing the bulk of it in drone form, anticipating some water crossing, now actualizing these sprawling hills. Glad these roads stretched out across them as far as possible, once again enjoying the climbing that was very palatable, as well as these proctored gate openings, ready for the main break in this ascent, with this half-mile downhill, a great breather, gorgeous to experience these hills in the opposite direction, accentuated by, what do you know, Happy John Craft was properly positioned, as we had no idea about the beauty from his angle. I wasn't aware of our exact positioning, but a little deja vu from last year around the curve where I was set up capturing riders on the last half mile of Beach Road, now getting to experience it on a bike and from a perspective far below, hoping everyone else was in the state of bliss, with the surroundings so picture perfect and the grass looking sharply green at all distances, finishing off the sector, but more climbing ahead. Remember I mentioned a street crossing coming up, only spending 1/3 of a mile on Ben Hur Road before starting a nearly 7-mile stretch on Silver Bar Road, with 1.5 miles left to complete this climb. Again, thankful for some oversight along the way, while still enjoying the silence with no vehicles to mention. And even though this is a long climb on paper, it doesn't take much to finish it off, ready for some downhill dirt payback. But you'll want to look around in this part to take advantage of reaching the highest point of the day, as you feel like you're getting deeper and deeper into the Sierra, looking straight ahead towards the ridges of Yosemite. But trying to counter that is the abundance of foliage. That's a byproduct of the elevation we've gained. And boy, do you want to start exploring these other roads. You could sense the end of off-roading was near, approaching these houses, and having to deal with frozen properties was for another time of the year, seeing some signs of early homesteads, as we were only 4 miles south of Mariposa, with this gold rush era town of 1,500 people nestled somewhere in these hills. And we could have gotten there if the ELR crew hadn't directed us west, returning back onto Ben Hur Road, that has a different character up here, though we'd only be on it for 2 miles, at least mostly trending downward. That may cause confusion as we were headed straight onto Buckeye Road, that decidedly had a lot more texture to its surface, meaning we were going to take this break at mile 33, and the aid station was stocked enough that we were going to stay a while. I was eager to get my start on the old highway, but a little too much that I had to go back and get my camera.
At least it wasn't too far away.
But I was ready to take in some more footnotes, like this bridge originally constructed in 1919. And maybe the road had been repaved sometime in between. It was hard to say that while riding it, leading to our last attended turn onto White Rock Road. The irony being, this was our harshest surface of the day. That lasted just a little more than a mile, and at 6%, went as fast as your setup allowed. So would you call it reverse irony when the dirt smoothed everything out? But a different attraction soon emerged, riding alongside the calming waters of Mariposa Creek. And while we welcomed the presence of this bridge, The worry wasn't falling off the side, but why do these crossings always seem to coincide with uphills? This 2-mile climb is the longest of today's second half, and no worries about getting a speeding ticket on the way up, but definitely a lot of eye candy along the way, as sometimes I note how different the foliage is when I'm on the north side of a hill, because when the landscape opens up about halfway to the top, it's a much more pastoral look, and the stories told by the visuals on the climb helps you complete it faster than you would think. Reaching the top had another significance, as we soon closed the lollipop at the start of the descent, and while we were overlapping for the remainder, looking south set a completely different scene, especially with the shift in sunlight. And if you haven't noticed by now, my rear camera didn't work, but I regret more not bringing my helmet cam, where the view from eye level was even fuller, meaning you should probably just come out here and do it yourself. Just when the hills themselves make it hard to distinguish, the return of the creek helps solve that problem, with more details coming back into the fold, as this would be a picturesque way of coming home if you lived here, pulling into the last pit stop of the day, with the tent pretty large that could serve as a supermarket, but I decided to go a little off course, further down White Rock Road, with this Civil War era cemetery representing some of the area's history, understanding why some people want to stay here forever. While these roads are open to all, spring is obviously the best time to get the most out of them, which is why you won't get this from me any other time of the year.
The hills are alive with the sound of gravel.
Riding back with just Vic made it a different experience. Keeping our own pace, not being in a pack, having a second chance on guessing why these rocks border such a small area, and mysteries of what that big dot is out there. Finding out it's just a lonely friend trying to get around the gate, maybe trying to find some company on the other side, as our curiosity was once again raised by other roads, but content sticking to the route, now 50 miles in, and stopping to smell the roses a little more. Passing some of ELR's well-organized support crew, it was time for our last 8 miles of road back, with the first quarter of it of the expedited variety, and the water crossing again being a telltale sign of now climbing this 1.25 mile pitch, that we didn't care about the 6% as much going down it earlier, with a little more work against the wind, rollers, and possibly these cows that look like someone used the copy and paste function. Everyone was in spinning mode, so close to the end, now rolling into the edge of town that at midday seemed as quiet as the morning, with the general store being a great mile marker to the end. Entering, feeling the enthusiasm from the volunteers, seeing lunch already in full effect, but first checking in for a few items to pick up, excited to join the action in full picnic mode where the tacos flowed like wine. And it was no surprise we had another fantastic time at Everyone Loves Raymond.
Good thing is this outro doesn't need too many words. I mean, if you watch the whole video, you know how gorgeous it is out there. I think Vic and I really enjoyed how the rest flowed for the second half, and getting to experience all this lushness, and you really look around, it's something special. My definitive answer between which is better, the Growler or the Pint, it's easily whatever ride you just did. Anyways, hats off to Henry and all the volunteers, fantastic job. And if you want to support our adventures, please go ahead, hit the subscribe or like button, go to our shop or support us on Patreon, so we can bring you more from the state of dirt.